In this video, I'd like to share a simple 5-step plan for achieving operational independence. We've developed this plan after having worked with hundreds of entrepreneurs for more than 20 years, helping them get their critical SOPs implemented so that they can scale reliably and consistently. This is the very plan that we use to systematize our own business, so we don't get stuck in endless meetings, we're not enslaved to our email boxes, and we don't endure those endless shoulder taps. Hey, Mike, you got a minute? That most CEOs and founders get. Most importantly, my business is fun again. We no longer experience stress and burnout. In fact, as a direct result of having a process-dependent business, and I may have mentioned this previously, I took a 14-month vacation. I traveled around the world with my wife and my 14-year-old son. And when I got back, my business was still humming along as if I'd never left. Now, that might not be your goal, although I strongly encourage it, but hang with me. What I want to emphasize is that if your goal is to step out of the day-to-day chaos and truly start leading your business like a CEO, working on your business and not just in the business, then you'll want to watch this entire video. It will definitely be worth your time. If I were in your shoes right now watching this just like you, I'd probably be a little bit skeptical. Oh yeah, here they go again. But at the same time, I'd probably be thinking, well, wait a minute. This is what all the books are talking about, what all the consultants are talking about, getting all of my SOPs implemented so things don't rely on any one specific individual. It sounds pretty good. How can I achieve operational independence if two things are true? Number one, if in general I knew that the 5-step plan worked, and number two, if I understand how it works, can it actually systematize my business so I know what's going to work for me and my business? So that's what I want to do in this video. I'm going to walk you through our 5-step plan for creating a process-dependent business and finding operational independence. I want to discuss how it works, and throughout, I will position it in a story format to keep you engaged, and I'll provide examples with all the necessary information you can use to draw your own conclusions. First, I want to point out that what we will be going through today is different. This is different from all of the other books that you've read on this topic and the consultants you've listened to, or maybe you've even attempted to implement this in your own business. In fact, if you've tried to systematize your business, chances are you're in what we've coined SOP chaos. Employees struggle to find the necessary processes. Even when they do find them, they're outdated. You can't get your people to follow the processes that have been written. They're gathering dust, and you feel like all of that time, effort, and money getting your SOPs written, it's been wasted. Fear not. We've solved this issue. I will show you why you ended up in SOP chaos, and I will demonstrate how to leverage all that work that you've already done to pivot to a process-driven business and achieve operational independence. This is the business process implementation plan that your business needs to scale without over-reliance on the founder, which is likely you, or any other key individuals within the organization. And we've done this with our own business and hundreds of others, and we test it by you taking that 30-day vacation from your business. Now, if that sounds crazy and you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't want to take a vacation right now. Maybe you want to hang out and get some work done. That's okay. Hang with me. Whether you do it or not, I want you to have the ability to do it, because what we found, if you can't be away from your business for 30 days in a chunk, there's a really good chance that your business isn't scalable. It isn't sellable. And there's an even better chance that you don't own your business owns you. On the other hand, if your business processes are current and implemented, your business becomes a valuable asset when you're ready to sell, because others can see how easily it can be scaled. This is not theory. This is not just an idea or a recommendation. This is practical. This is tactical. I'm going to show you how to do it. So let's get started. Meet Mark. Right out of high school, he started as an HVAC apprentice, working his way up over the years from tech to sales consultant, handling quotes, installs, customer complaints, and employee issues. Eventually, he realized, you know what? I'm doing everything here anyway. Why don't I start my own company? So with his on-the-job experience, Mark launches his very own HVAC business. Through his passion and hard work, he gains a reputation for great service, and his business grows. But as his business grows, so do the challenges. Mark found himself overwhelmed with service calls and new hires he barely had time to train. Mistakes increased. Customer complaints started trickling in, and this once smooth operation started to feel chaotic. With his techs completely overstretched and morale's dropping, Mark was working longer and longer hours, spending more time putting out fires than really growing his business. He's getting stressed. He barely has time for his family or his own life. His wife wonders when they're going to have a date night again. He feels like he and his business are out of control. And Mark is left wondering, how do I keep the company from running me into the ground? He felt like he'd hit a wall. He wanted to scale, but the idea of growth seemed to be adding more stress to his life. Well, today, Mark has grown his business to 12 employees. Annual sales are approximately 5 million. The business is profitable. Employees do what is expected of them. His quality of service is consistent. There are very few, if any, customer complaints. His employees find their work rewarding and often invite their friends and family members to apply to the company when a position becomes available. And recruiting and training new employees, it's easy and systematic. He's turned the chaos of his business into a well-oiled machine that scales on autopilot. Now, while Mark owns an HVAC business, this could be any business with any number of employees from, say, 5 to 50. So this is the story of how Mark went from SOP chaos to operational independence. A few years ago, Mark read a business book by Michael Gerber called The E-Myth: Why Most Businesses Fail and What to Do About It. He connected with the message in the book. He felt like the book was a story about his business. He hired a business coach. One of the key lessons from his coach, a message he learned from reading The E-Myth, was that he needed documented procedures, SOPs, standard operating procedures, that could be used for training new employees and holding existing employees accountable to expectations. He'd read that for every frustration in the business, he needed a process. And by having that process, he'd no longer have that frustration. So he starts writing processes. He thinks, here's a frustration, I'll write a process for that. And here's another frustration, I'll write a process for that. And yet here's another frustration, I'll write a process for that. He was psyched. He completely shut down the company for an entire month. No new projects, no hiring, nothing, until every single person had documented everything they did in their role. Now, his employees were not thrilled about this. Half the team was panicking, worried that they were about to lose their jobs. The other was angry that they were being asked to write down things that they already knew by heart. And people were confused. They hadn't been given much direction. They were told to write down what they did and how they did it, but in what format? Were they supposed to create videos? Were they to write Word documents, checklists, spreadsheets, audio files? How much detail was required? And where were they supposed to store them once they were created? On their hard drives, on the company's intranet, on Google Drive and Dropbox? And how were they supposed to be organized? It nearly turned into a full-blown mutiny, but Mark stayed the course and managed to get everyone to pull together. And by the end of that month, they'd done it. They had created what Mark had envisioned, the ultimate solution. Everything in the company had been documented into an SOP. But here's what happened. No one bothered to use those processes. There was an overwhelming amount of stuff, and it was inconsistent in various formats. It was disorganized, scattered across multiple platforms. No one could find the SOP they were looking for. And after a few months, even if they went through the effort to locate the file, it was no longer current. They no longer followed that method. All of that hard work was gathering digital dust. But Mark didn't give up. Too many business books have been written on the importance and value of having documented business processes. I mean, it worked for IBM, it worked for Disney, it worked for Federal Express, it worked for the military. It has to work. It was going to work for him. Something was missing. Mark was missing two key elements. He was missing a business systemization tool and a business systemization plan. Missing element number one, a business systemization tool. Mark needed a tool, an easy to use tool, one that would enable his team to quickly locate the necessary instructions when needed for both training and review purposes. Without scavenger hunts through disorganized folders, without endless got-a-minute interruptions, without adding another bloated project management tool, without burning out leadership with micromanagement. Mark had been using the wrong tools. Mark was using Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, Google Docs, Google Sheets. These are all document sharing tools. They're not designed for process implementation. He needed the right tool designed for the right job. He needed a process implementation tool. Mark chose the Touchstone business system. Touchstone integrates your people with their positions and their processes, ensuring that every task is clearly defined, assigned, and followed. And unlike generic document storage or task managers, Touchstone is purpose-built for SOP implementation, offering 9 different process building tools like checklists, work plans, scripts, videos, AI-generated drafts, and more. So what Touchstone offered Mark was role-linked accountability. SOPs are embedded within each job description, ensuring owners always know who's responsible for what. Process-first design. So SOPs are organized by function, not folders, eliminating the need for, can someone send me that link forever? Expert-backed and AI-powered. Well, basically, Touchstone's built on 20 plus years of E-Myth consulting, and it's now supercharged with AI process writing tools. However, creating an operationally independent business is much, much more than just documenting processes. You need a plan. Missing element number 2, a business systemization plan. Mark followed the 5-step business systemization blueprint. Now, how the business systemization blueprint works is this. Component number 1, creating and implementing the vision. So Mark's coach had asked him to create a vision. He wasn't quite sure how to do that, but he needed to see what would his business be like in, say, 3 to 5 years. So this includes annual revenue, profitability, the number of employees, the types of clients, what the culture would be like in his company. There were numerous questions to answer in this exercise, but Mark got through it. He went through it dutifully and developed a well-drafted vision. But he'd never found value with the vision that he created. It was just an interesting exercise that he'd gone through. He had actually never found a way to use his vision. Now he was able to add his vision into his touchstone tool and use it to implement his strategic planning process, his onboarding process, his orientation process, his management processes. It was available to all employees and managers whenever they needed it to remind them of the company's mission, purpose, and core values. His vision also became a valuable step towards completing the second component of his business systemization plan. Component number 2, using his vision to map out his org chart. So Mark used his company's vision to create a map of his future organization chart. He'd previously created an org chart of his existing company. And again, it had been a thoughtful exercise, but it was just a picture. It was buried away in some file folder somewhere. It was never used. With Touchstone, his org chart now becomes this dynamic strategic planning tool, helping him determine who to hire next, clarifying the responsibility of someone hired for that position, linking SOPs, which provide instructions for training and managing that new recruit, everything they need to get the person hired for that position up to speed as quickly and efficiently as possible. Mark's org chart became this future visual structure of every role and its outcomes. It helped him to create alignment and expose all the gaps and redundancies within his organization. It then led him to component number 3, process identification, organization, and linking to roles. In this step, Mark consolidated his scattered SOPs into a single searchable, version-controlled repository. He essentially created an organized table of contents for all of the processes in his business, a brief name and a description of each one. It helped him to understand all of the processes, all of the necessary processes he had or needed, and it revealed duplicate SOPs, which he was able to eliminate. In this step, he also came to realize his team had written a lot of processes that were not needed or not even useful. He organized his processes into 4 key functions, the 4 key functions of every and any business. First key function, sales and marketing. These are all of the processes that his sales consultants use to generate new leads and convert them into long-term loyal customers. Key function number 2, client fulfillment and customer service. All of the processes that his techs used to fulfill the promises made to his clients, the promises that were made during the sales process. Key function number 3, admin, finance, HR. All of the back-end processes that his office staff used to support the sales and client fulfillment team, as well as all the processes used for recruiting, hiring, onboarding new staff as the company scaled. And finally, key function number 4, strategy and management. All of the processes used by the C-level employees to guide the business from where they are today to where they needed to be per the company's mission, purpose, and values. In this step, Mark's not writing processes. The writing of the processes, that's an ongoing thing. In this step, he was simply understanding the scope of the project ahead of him and organizing the SOPs so they could be more easily found. Component number 4, linking processes and linking employees to their roles on the organization chart. With all of their processes now identified, Mark and his team use their Touchstone account to link every process, every SOP name to one or more roles on their organization chart, thereby automatically creating position-specific operating manuals for every box on their org chart. It was a simple drag and drop operation. Once the SOPs are linked to those roles, every employee was then linked to their specific box on the org chart. Now Mark had achieved what I like to call complete functional accountability. Every single task in the company was connected to a specific role, and every role had a responsible person assigned to it. Nothing was left unaccountable for. Every process had an owner. Mark had established crystal clear accountability. None of his tasks lived in limbo. He'd built the systemic foundation of his process-dependent business. But to create full operational independence, Mark had one final task, and this is component number 5, SOP implementation, systematize, and scale. At this point, Mark has created the systemic foundation for his process-dependent business. He has his vision documented and implemented. He has a dynamic organizational chart of his future company that he'll use for strategic planning and growth. He has a comprehensive list of all of the processes he believes are necessary, organized into the 4 key functions of every business, and linked to the corresponding roles on his organization chart. He's automatically created position-specific operating manuals for every single role in his organization. That said, there's still some work to be done. Now he has to get all of those SOPs documented and implemented. While this is an ongoing process, many entrepreneurs at this point kind of throw up their hands and wonder, how are they ever going to get all these processes written? Mark, he has more than 100 processes organized in his 4 key functions. So this then is the final step of the plan, and there are 2 key components. Component number 1, which SOPs actually have to be written? Here's where many entrepreneurs, they go wrong. They strive to establish a process for every aspect of their business, for everything that's going on in their business. They create documents, checklists, and videos, and they save these SOPs all over the place. What Mark came to understand is that he didn't have to document everything in his business. Once he had this list that he'd identified, he asked himself these 4 questions. Question number 1, how complicated is this task? If it's only going to take a few minutes to explain it to somebody, if it's going to take less than 5 minutes, you probably don't need to document it. If it's going to take more than 5 minutes, you're going to likely consider that this might be something to document, to write an SOP. But if it's less than 5 minutes, skip it. Question number 2, is this task, is it something that's going to be done more than once? If you plan to perform this task repeatedly and it takes more than 5 minutes to explain or train someone on how to do it, it's probably a sign that you need to document it. If it only happens once, it's a project. It's not a process. I don't think you have to write a process for a project. Question number 3, this is really important. How critical is this process to your organization? If someone makes a mistake performing this function, will it have a detrimental impact on the business? If the answer is yes, and it's going to take longer than 5 minutes for you to describe how to do it, and it happens more often than once, then you should document a standard operating procedure for this. And in fact, what we typically recommend is that employees pull them up, go through them, and follow those processes. These are critical processes. The 4th question, is the task something that you don't like doing as the founder, or that you should not be doing? Is this something that doesn't require your unique expertise? And maybe it might be better handled by someone else in your organization. Is it a task that is not a good use of your time? Maybe a responsibility that falls outside of your core strengths or priorities. If someone else on your team could take it on effectively, you write an SOP and delegate it to that person. Component number 2, prioritizing the writing process. So once Mark had determined which of his processes needed to be documented, he began to prioritize them. He asked himself, what are the most essential processes that need to be written right now? Now, hear me when I say this. He did not ask, what are the most important processes? It's likely that the most important processes in the business are those that Mark handles. And since Mark is not currently planning to leave, these are processes that he doesn't need to delegate. They don't need to be documented at this point. For example, Mark was considering hiring a front office assistant. All of the processes needed to train someone hired for that position had already been linked to that box on his organization chart. Simply clicking on the office assistant box on his org chart within his Touchstone account generated a complete list of processes that he needed to document. Maybe there were 8 or 10. Instead of focusing on hundreds of processes, he just focused on these 8 or 10 processes to write. Now, while these processes are not among the most essential processes in the business, they are highly prioritized for documentation because they'll be very useful and practical for training the new employee hired for the position. Mark also wondered if there was a specific key function in his business that needed attention. He scanned through his processes and he realized that the results from his sales consultants were inconsistent. Some of his sales reps were doing really well while others weren't. And he was determined to document the best practices, the methods used by his top performers, and then train those who were not top performers. In this manner, Mark went through his SOP list and prioritized which processes needed to be written, as well as identified the best person to write them. Now, this step is ongoing: prioritization, writing, implementing your SOPs, but you're focusing on somewhere between 8 and 12 at a time. And it makes it much more palatable. It makes it much easier to get your processes done when you're focusing on 8 to 12. If you only have 8 to 12 to do in a month or in 2 months, yes, you can get that done. When you're thinking about hundreds of processes, it can be very overwhelming. In the end, Mark discovered that by linking his employees to boxes on his organization chart and delivering role-specific training within the platform, he created consistency and reliability among his existing staff. And his veteran employees, they appreciated the clarity of responsibility and expectations. They consistently followed the latest steps and the best practices. It made their jobs easier and it made their jobs more satisfying. And new hires were ramping up 30 to 50% faster. From this point forward, Mark reviews and updates his SOPs. He has a process for what he calls a weekly 1 hour on ritual, 1 hour a week dedicated to process improvement, tracked by a simple KPI scorecard. It's basically his method for continuous improvement, a rhythm for updating, auditing, and refining his processes. It basically keeps his systems alive, preventing that binder on the shelf syndrome. So with this blueprint's comprehensive approach, all 5 components running together, Mark's HVAC business now functions like a self-managing growth machine. If you've attempted to systemize your business in the past, if it didn't work, or if you're in SOP chaos, you can probably see now why it didn't work. You were probably missing a tool. You were probably missing a plan, a process implementation tool and a process implementation plan. Look, this is not rocket science. In fact, it's pretty simple. You can do it. It's just not that easy to do it on your own. And we've boiled this down to an exact science. It could easily take 100 plus hours if you tried to implement it on your own. But if you work with us, I promise it will only take 6 to 10 hours for you to complete the first 4 steps of the plan that I outlined, laying out the foundation for your process-dependent business. Once the foundation is built, carrying out the rest of the plan, prioritizing, writing, implementing, and repeating, that comes pretty easily, and you'll have a great method for engaging your team in the process. This is what's going to systematize and automate your company so that the important work gets done the right way by someone other than you or some other specific individual in your organization. It's team accountability so that everyone knows what to do. Everyone knows how to do it. Everyone knows who's supposed to do it. The result is that you no longer have to be in the weeds of your business because your team is doing all the grunt work instead of you. The goal is simple, a scalable business that you can exit one day. Whether that means, by the way, completely exiting and selling the company for what you feel and know it's worth and not simply settling for what someone else is willing to pay for it. If they don't want to pay what you're asking, you can walk away from the negotiations knowing that you've got a valuable asset that's basically going to run with or without you. You can wait until someone is willing to offer you your price. So you can exit the business and sell it, or you can be calling in for the numbers. Take that 1, 2, 3, or 14-month-long vacation, knowing that the business can hum along just fine, whether or not you're there. Or you can do what you love to do in your business, knowing that all of the tasks that you don't like doing are being handled reliably and efficiently by someone who does like doing those tasks. Either way, when this process is complete, I'm going to encourage you to take that 30-day vacation, even if you decide not to at the end, knowing that you have the option. It's really powerful. Lastly, this is not a course. I cannot emphasize that enough. This is not a course. This is tactical. You'll receive direct one-on-one support. You'll build the foundation for your process-dependent business, and you'll have a plan for documenting your standard operating procedures, implementing them to manage your teams, and addressing all other aspects of running a successful, scalable business. You'll meet weekly with me or someone on my team, a certified Touchstone implementer. They know this framework inside and out, and they're used to working with businesses that are just like yours. They're going to shepherd you and your leadership team through these 5 steps, and their expert one-on-one guidance will ensure that you never get stuck and lose momentum. You and your team will also receive real-time support when needed. We've got unparalleled and unlimited live support. We've got weekly drop-in calls, kind of similar to office hours that you can attend or your team can attend. The point is, you're never stuck. You're never stuck because you have a team of mentors, facilitators, and advisors there to guide you every step of the way. The only catch is that due to the one-on-one nature of this program, we currently have a capacity issue. And as I record this, we can take on about 10 new clients each month. We're working on our own scale. Still, we want to ensure that the people in our team, as I mentioned, they truly understand this material. So we purposely limit our capacity to deliver the best results. And that means, though, that we frequently have a 2 to 3 month waiting list. So hopefully this goes without saying, the sooner you book your exploratory walkthrough call, the better. If we can fit you in now, we will. If there's a wait, well, we'll let you know that as well. There are no secrets here. When you book your walkthrough call, you're going to fill out a couple of questions, a very simple questionnaire that will allow us to come to that meeting fully prepared. We'll arrive on time. My ask is that you do the same. When you book the meeting, hold the meeting, pay attention, make sure that you're there on time and that you're focused. We're going to invest in you. We're going to ask you to do the same for us. So I'm going to close this out. If you're tired of being owned by your business and you're ready to achieve the wealth, freedom, and impact that you've wanted since day one, remember, you did not start your company because you needed another job, right? You started this business because you wanted freedom, because you wanted wealth, because you wanted impact. You've got to have all 3. So if that's where you are, take a few minutes, book your walkthrough call while it's still fresh in your mind. If you wait, if you say, I'll just do that later, later means never, okay? So go ahead, do it right now. And I can tell you that I can't wait for you to see the difference that operational independence can make in your business and in your life. I'm confident that this can significantly impact your business. I know it can change your life because it changed mine, and I've watched it transform the lives of many entrepreneurs. I sincerely look forward to working with you. I sincerely look forward to making that happen for you. Let's do it. Let's get together. We'll see you there.